Hi everybody. My brain doesn't seem as centered as I usually am able to get it when I start to do these, but I'm going to try my best. I do have to speed through a little bit though, because the way I load videos, I have time constraints. Either way, here we are. Robin Williams. I met Robin Williams when I was 14 years old. My mom was taking me to the Oscars for my first time. And I saw him, and I ran up to him, and I shook his hand, and I told him how much I loved him, just like all of us loved him. And then I ran back to my mom, and I told my somewhat cynical mom, "Hey, I just shook Robin Williams' hand." She said, no, you did not. And I said, "Yeah, I did." And she said, no, you did not. So I proceeded to walk over to Robin Williams, just grab his arm, and drag him the 10 feet over to my mother, and look at him and say, "Will you please tell my mother that I just shook your hand?" And he says, yes, ma'am, he just shook my hand. And I said, "Thank you." And that was the end of that. That was my experience with Robin Williams up until he died. Now, my experience vicariously as I watched him grew as I grew to understand mental illness, my mental illness, depression amongst anxiety and a ton of other things that haven't even been found yet. Watching him, I could see it. I saw myself in him, even when no one else seemed to notice, or at least a lot of people didn't. And so when his death happened, I was not surprised, unfortunately. Depression, the biggest one, what it is like is drowning in a pool of your own blood. You are screaming for help. It seems like you're screaming for help because the way you're pulling back, the way you're hiding is your scream, because that seems to be the only way you know how to get it out anymore. And people see the receding as you... it's only when it gets to the worst point that people finally notice, and usually by the time they finally notice, it's too late. We need to be able to be honest. So I'm going to be honest. Depression, for me. I have cut myself to get attention. That was a cry for help. I didn't even know it at the time. I blamed it on one of my twitches. It wasn't until much later I realized it was me trying to get attention, saying, "Somebody help me." It was my way of doing that. I have taken many, many pills. The fact that I could drink almost a gallon of vodka, take a bunch of Xanax, and smoke a bunch of weed in one night and still be alive still blows me away. But depression is a hole so deep inside of you that even you are lost inside yourself. You have no idea what's going on. You know you feel this way, but you have no friggin' idea. Sometimes your brain throws out ideas at you as, you feel like this because of this. It was this person that made you feel this way. It was this thing that happened to you that made you feel this way. And then some of us, we get really, really angry and we lash out at those things. But then eventually, and that lashing out sometimes makes us feel a little bit better, and we're not depressed anymore for a second. And then it comes right back, the doubt, the pity, the shame. And that's a big thing with shame. With all mental illness, not just depression, but anxiety. And I mean, I've talked about my whole kitchen thing. There is public shaming in it because we're afraid to talk about ourselves. Because talking about ourselves is being vulnerable, and the only reason we feel vulnerable is because society makes us feel vulnerable. It's nothing to be ashamed about. The thing is, every last person that has ever existed has had something wrong with their head. Some of us have varying degrees of what is wrong and how wrong it is, But every last person has had something wrong, because there is no perfection. There is no right. The shaming comes in what people have created as society and what is normal, what they think is normal, being put upon all of us. When the honest truth is, normal is being messed up, because every single one of us has been messed up. The geniuses and the beauties, and the maniacs and the psychos. And now I want to touch on a certain part for, first, of course, brain-injured people. Second, anybody that falls into depression because of illness, death in a family, death, whatever. There's a million different things that can cause it beyond just genetically being predisposed to it. But when you have the brain injury, sometimes that's what causes the anxiety, the depression, the anger swings, all that stuff. Sometimes you already had it, and now it is a labyrinth in your mind. It's like a labyrinth that's drawn by Escher and flipped over in as many dimensions as you can possibly think. But the key to it is your labyrinth. Your brain created it. While fixing itself, while surviving this trauma that happened to it, it built this maze for you. It built it for you. The thing about a maze is a maze always has a goal. There's always an end. It may be a tough maze, and some of our mazes are way harder than others, but every maze has an end. And your brain built it, which means you're the one that is in control of it. You got to find the blueprint. It's somewhere. Once you find that blueprint, you are going to be speeding through that bad boy like it's the Sunday Times and you've been a pro for 20 years. Now, the big thing. We gotta not be ashamed to talk about any of this stuff anymore. Any last person. Because all of us feel it. And every person that doesn't, or says that they don't, it's because they're ashamed to say that they've ever had any of those thoughts. We all have. Some a lot worse than others. And the ones that have it a lot worse than others are the ones that need the help the most right now. They're the ones that need to know that their voice is just as valid and just as important, and that it's safe to say out loud, I am feeling this way and I know it's not right. And that's a really hard thing to try to do. We're going to try to do it. Other people are trying to do it, and we're going to continue. We're going to, through this page and other stuff, try to do our best to do our part. But ultimately, if you don't have that support and help, you have this, and you have yourself. The real you is floating around, and he or she, it or them, want to show you and guide you through the maze. Find them and start listening to them, and every single time bad things start to happen, just remember to tell yourself, I'm feeling this way. Yes, I can't take away the fact that I feel this way. But I know it's because there's something wrong with my brain, and that's it. It's just a glitch in the computer. I need to look past it, focus on something that makes me feel differently, and then try to move on. And then I want to end finally with super love to Janet and to Deb for helping me to do all of this and helping all of us to just basically continue to do what is just right. Anyways, any of you guys having problems. I'm sorry, but it's not your fault. It really is not your fault. You're right, it's unnatural. It's not supposed to be there, technically. But it's not your fault. It's a glitch. When it happens, listen to your heart. Listen to that right part of your brain that says, hey, stop a second. You're a smart person. You know this isn't real. It feels real, but know yourself that it's not. Take care, everybody.